you want to lose weight, then you simply need to burn more calories than you consume on a regular basis. And you can do this by either altering your diet or doing more exercise. And if you do opt for exercise, then the question is, which sport is best for burning those excessive calories?
Yes, so we've already compared the difference between swimming and running in a rough experiment, and now we wanted to look at the differences between cycling and running. So to do that, we're going to step things up a little bit. We're going to head into the physiology lab here at Team Bath, and we are going to get science involved.
Today we have chosen cycling and running due to the fact that they're both land-based activities, so we can get more scientific with our calculations, but also because they're both commonly used to help you lose weight.
Yeah, and before we delve into the comparisons of the calorie numbers themselves, we thought it'd be worthwhile looking at the pros and the cons of each sport individually.
Running is weight-bearing, therefore it helps to beat osteoporosis through the loading of the bones and the joints.
Cycling, on the other hand, will cause less wear and tear on our joints, and as a result will less likely give us an injury.
Running requires minimal equipment and can be done pretty much anywhere.
However, cycling does require a bike and a little bit more kit, although most gyms do have indoor spin bikes, so there are some alternatives as well.
Both sports can be social, although cycling probably a little more so, as it can be done at a slightly lower intensity.
Now, leading on from the last point, you can of course cycle longer as it puts less strain on our bodies.
We've chosen to use calories as the measurement today, as most people are aware of this unit and it's a simple way to measure energy. We are actually though going to be referring to kilocalories, which are the equivalent of 1,000 calories, as that's the number that you'll get on any food labels, but also on your fitness trackers.
Yeah, now put quite simply, in order to lose weight, you need to be consistently burning more calories through your exercise and daily activities than you're taking on board through food and drink over the course of each day.
Well, with that in mind, let's look at how we can measure our calorie output. Now, there are several options out there, but some are more accurate than others.
Now, you could use a simple calorie calculator, and this is a case of you putting in your sex, your weight, your age, and then guessing the intensity that you have been working at. But you're going to get a very rough number out of this because that calorie calculator is going to have to figure out how hard that you are going to give you an indication of how many calories you've burned.
Well, stepping up from that would be a fitness tracker or a sports watch, which can continually measure your heart rate throughout the activity, so it knows the intensity you've worked at, and then combines that with the personal data that's already stored on there to be able to give you a more realistic estimate of just how many calories you've burned in that activity.
So today we're going to take that one step further yet again to measure our calorie output by using the most accurate of measurement techniques. So we're going to head off into the lab to see exactly what that entails.
Hi Jonathan, thanks again for the use of your lab and your time. Today we want to look at the calorie consumption comparing cycling to running, and I wanted to know how we can do it and how we can actually measure that accurately here.
Okay, so what we'll do today is we'll measure oxygen consumption, so commonly referred to as VO2, people heard of VO2 max, but this will be submaximal, so it's how much oxygen you're using at a certain exercise intensity, and from that, with a few assumptions, you can work out calorie consumption.
And obviously that varies depending on what intensity you're working at, and we haven't got that much time today. So if we were to pick two sort of levels to work at, what's the best two to choose?
I think for what you want to do today, because obviously you want to look at levels that people might sustain, so we might look at level 2, fairly aerobic work, and then probably level 4, so kind of threshold-based work, which might be zones that people would sustain for certain periods of time, really. And you do, when we're doing VO2 measurements, you see a huge difference in oxygen consumption from the transition from walking into running. Okay. Even for only, say, 1k change in speed.
All right, well, I'm intrigued to find out what the results look like.
Myself and Heather will be measuring our calories burnt whilst running and then cycling. Heather has drawn the shorter straw and will be working harder, closer to her threshold in zone 4. However, I'll be sticking to a more aerobic capacity at my zone 2 intensity.
Most people presume that running burns more calories than cycling, so we're keen to find out if this is true, and if so, what is the difference?
With both the bike and run completed, it's time for Jonathan to do some calculations and work out the calorie output for our respective efforts.
Right, we've just about got our breath back, Jonathan. I want to have a look at the numbers. First of all, how did my calories come out for bike compared to run if we looked at it for the hour?
If we work it out for an hour, running, it's about 991 calories per hour, and then biking is 868.
Okay.
So that's a difference of about 124.
And then how do Fraser's numbers look?
So Fraser's are slightly higher. So reasons behind that is obviously he's slightly bigger, so he's using more oxygen. So in terms of actual energy using, you'd expect it to be higher. So that's 1,156 for running and 994 for biking. So that difference comes out a little bit more at 212.
Now, I think it's safe to say that we both thought running was going to come out on tops in our little experiment here, which it did, considering the weight-bearing element of that sport, plus the fact that it is more of a full-body workout compared to cycling, it gives it that advantage.
However, cycling you can obviously do for a far longer duration. So if you've got plenty of time on your side, you might be better off using cycling to burn more calories. But I personally find that running is the easiest way for me to lose weight, partly because it suppresses my appetite, but partly because when I go cycling, I quite often have coffee and cake.
Which is no bad thing at all. Now, if you have got one of these sports that you perhaps lean towards if you're trying to lose a little bit of weight, please let us know and drop those down in the comments there. We'd love to hear about that. Hopefully you enjoyed our video, so please hit that thumb up like button and find the globe wherever it is on screen so you can get all the other videos that we have done. And if you want to see a video that we did about losing calories a little bit larger, 1,000 of them, well, you can get that video here.
And if you want to see a comparison between swimming and running when it comes to calorie consumption, you can find that one just down here.